My sister pushed Grandma down the stairs to get her out of the will and is blaming me, but if my parents believe her, they could get in trouble too. 2 weeks ago, my grandma, my dad's mom, fell down the stairs at her house. She broke her hip and wrist and had to go to the hospital. She's still recovering. And even though that's awful enough, that's not the worst part of what happened. I don't want to downplay what happened to my grandma, but there's something darker than just an accident. My younger sister was the one who pushed her, and somehow I'm the one being blamed. Let me tell you how we got here. When I was little, my grandma and I were really close. She was practically a second mom to me. My parents worked full-time. My dad was often traveling for work. My mom worked late at a finance company. So my grandma took care of me a lot, took me to school, made me snacks, read with me, helped me with my homework, all that stuff. Some of my most comforting childhood memories are from her cozy little house. But then something changed. Around age 8, we stopped seeing her almost completely. If I asked about her, my parents said she was busy or traveling. After a while, they said she didn't want to be a grandma anymore, that she needed space. It broke my heart, and I was too young to understand that it wasn't normal. Back then, I thought it was my fault. One day I spilled grape juice on a hardcover book she lent me, a rare one that she loved. And for years I thought that was why. I thought I'd ruined something so valuable to her that she couldn't stand to see me after that. Looking back now, that was a sad thing for a little girl to carry, but no one gave me another reason, so I accepted it and tried not to think about her much. Fast forward to about a year after I moved to college, I started digging around. I was curious. I started asking questions. My mom would shut me down every time I mentioned my grandma. That was the first red flag, so I found her myself. I looked her up on social media, reached out to her, and when we finally met, she cried, hugged me, and didn't want to let go. It was like all those lost years disappeared in one moment. That's when I found out the truth. Apparently, my parents had cut her off because she didn't treat my sister like a real granddaughter. It turns out my sister is the result of an affair my mom had when I was little, something I had no idea about until that conversation. My dad stayed, but it caused a big rift in the family. My grandma didn't reject me. She was cut off because she refused to pretend nothing happened. She never wanted to stop seeing me. She never stopped loving me. She was heartbroken and powerless. And all that time, I thought she hated me. So for the past year, we've been slowly reconnecting. I spent weekends with her when I could. It was healing for both of us. Then, 2 weeks ago, it happened. That Saturday, we had planned to make an apple pie together. She'd been talking about trying a new recipe she saw online. I got to her house around 10:30 in the morning, and to my surprise, my sister was already there. I remember asking her why she was there, and she said something vague, like she wanted to fix things with Grandma, which was weird. She'd never had a relationship with Grandma. In fact, she'd actively avoided talking about her. Grandma looked uncomfortable, but she didn't say much. She smiled kindly and gave me a quick hug. I tried to go along with it. I thought maybe my sister was trying to make an effort, even though it felt fake. We moved to the kitchen, and after a few minutes, Grandma asked my sister if she could help her get something from the guest room upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen and started making the dough, kneading and mixing the ingredients on the counter. They were gone for about 3 to 5 minutes, not long. Then I heard it, a loud crash, followed by an agonizing scream. I dropped what I was doing and ran to the stairs. I'll never forget what I saw. Grandma was lying at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her side, moaning in pain. My sister was standing on the landing halfway up the stairs, her face pale and tearful. At first, she was sobbing, saying, "I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it." Over and over. My heart stopped. I thought she was confessing that she'd hurt Grandma, but as soon as she noticed I was there, everything changed. She went silent for a moment, then turned to me and said, "You pushed her." I was still downstairs. I hadn't even moved from the kitchen. But by the time the paramedics arrived and my parents showed up shortly after, she was already halfway through telling them that I'd lost it, that I was jealous that Grandma wanted to rebuild a relationship with her, and that I pushed her in a fit of rage. She did this over the phone. I told them the story I'm telling you now when they arrived at my grandma's house, But it didn't matter to my parents. They believed her instantly. They ordered me to leave. My mom yelled at me in front of the paramedics. My dad didn't even look at me. Grandma was in a lot of pain and wasn't fully awake when they took her away. Meanwhile, I'm banned from her house. I've been blocked from the family chats, and apparently they've told our relatives that I'm violent and mentally unstable. They've called me everything from a sociopath to dangerous in texts and voicemails. I tried to visit Grandma in the hospital the next day, but the nurses told me she didn't want visitors. I didn't believe them, so I tried again the day after that and got the same message. I don't know if she asked not to be visited or if someone told the staff not to let me in, but I'm terrified that she thinks it was me. When I finally managed to make a short call to her room, she told me she didn't clearly remember what happened. She just remembers being near the stairs, feeling a push, and falling. "It's all blurry," she said. "So here I am, being blamed for hurting the woman I worked so hard to reconnect with, while the real culprit is out there, pretending to be the perfect granddaughter. I don't know what to do. I feel helpless, manipulated, and honestly terrified of what my sister and my parents are planning next." At this point, it's her word against mine. If I go to the police, she can say the same about me, and with my parents' help, make me look like the more likely one to have done it. If only my grandma remembered something, but she still hasn't. Update 1. A few days after my last post, my grandma was released from the hospital and transferred to a short-term rehab center so she could recover with proper care. I found out through one of my cousins, not my parents. No one in my immediate family told me where she was or how she was doing. I had to ask around to find out where she'd gone. When I finally got the address, I showed up with flowers and a card. I just wanted to sit with her and talk, even if she still didn't remember everything. But I never got past the reception desk. A nurse came out and told me I wasn't allowed in. I was completely confused. I asked if this was a medical rule or a personal decision, and she told me very carefully that the staff had received instructions from family members not to let me visit for safety reasons. Apparently, my sister told them I'm dangerous and might try to finish what I started. Those were her exact words. What I find strange is that they're doing all this without filing a police report against me. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I left. But later I contacted the rehab center and asked for a formal explanation. I didn't threaten legal action or anything like that. I just wanted something in writing. The response I got was vague, but it confirmed what I already suspected. The staff was acting under the guidance of the family, and I hadn't been banned by law or center rules. It was all based on the lies they'd created. Meanwhile, I found out that my sister is now staying at my grandma's house. My parents say she's just there to take care of the house. She'd almost never been to Grandma's house. She had no emotional connection to her, and now all of a sudden, she's the one living there. She's not taking care of her. She's moving in. I started trying to piece together what I could. I asked my grandma's neighbors if they saw anything that day. Most said no, or they weren't home, or they didn't notice anything unusual. But one neighbor across the street recognized me and stopped me as I was walking away. She told me she remembered hearing shouting that morning, 2 women's voices arguing. She couldn't hear every word, but she said one of the voices sounded younger and was yelling something about not being left out again. That was before I arrived. She went there to confront Grandma, and whatever was said between them upstairs ended with my sister angry enough to push her. Maybe it was an impulse, maybe it was planned, but the end result is the same. And now she's doing everything she can to make sure no one connects the dots. I told my parents what the neighbor said. I thought they'd at least consider it. My dad told me I was harassing innocent people and acting like a stalker. My mom said I should let it go because I wasn't helping my case by obsessing over it so much. My extended family is now practically divided in 2. And here's the part that really pushed me over the edge. I recently found out that my sister got a job at a law firm that's a friend of my mom's. Like, right after all this, she's suddenly super busy, working late, and always has something important to do. My gut tells me this isn't just about work. I think she's preparing for something legal, maybe a restraining order or laying the groundwork in case I try to sue or contest the will. My parents aren't subtle. They've been dropping hints about moving on and accepting the consequences. I've started meeting with a friend of mine who's studying law and works at a local legal aid center. She's not a lawyer yet, but she's helping me understand my rights and what kind of evidence I'd need to start building a case. She was the one who encouraged me to document everything, messages, calls, who said what and when. So that's what I've been doing. Screenshots, written records, everything. Because I'm not going to let them get away with this without consequences. I'll update again when there's more, but for now I'm focusing on documenting everything and protecting myself, because whatever game she's playing, it's not over. Yet. Update 2. One of my cousins reached out to me after seeing everything that was happening. She used to live a few blocks from my grandma's house and had kept in touch with her, even after most of the family drifted away. She told me she had something I needed to know, something I never would have found out on my own. She told me that my grandma had made a decision recently. She was going to change her will. She wanted everything to go to someone who had stepped up, someone who didn't abandon her when the rest of the family did. My cousin told me that my grandma had been clear about her intentions and had even said word for word, "I want it to go to the only person who chose to come back, who never lied to me, who never treated me like a burden." That person was me. It's not that all her money is going to me, but the part that was supposed to go to my parents is. My grandma had already called her lawyer and set a date to officially amend the will, but that meeting never happened. The fall happened 3 days before that date. That's when the pieces clicked into place. Apparently, my grandma had mentioned her plans to someone else, and there's a good chance that news got back to my mom. And if my mom knew, my sister knew too. That would explain her sudden interest in grandma. That would explain why she was so nervous that morning. Because my grandma looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. And most importantly, it explains the motive. That same night, I took a risk. I remembered that my grandma sometimes left her laptop open. My sister had been using it that morning. She said she needed to check something for school because her phone was dead, and my grandma didn't have a charger for that kind of phone. I decided to go into grandma's house. I still have a key, and my sister hasn't changed the locks. She had sent a message on social media from grandma's house using the computer while I was in the kitchen that morning. It was to my mom. It said, "She confirmed that she's leaving everything to me." I took screenshots immediately. My sister knew that grandma was going to cut her out of the will. She knew it, and she reacted. And that reaction led to a 75-year-old woman in the hospital. And now, this is what I have. A witness, the neighbor who heard the shouting that morning, a motive based on money and inheritance, a digital record of my sister panicking the day of the incident, a timeline showing that the fall happened just before the will was going to be changed. I don't know if this is enough to take legal action yet, but I've already contacted a lawyer and scheduled an appointment. If nothing else, I want everything documented. If they're planning to fight dirty, I want to be one step ahead. Update 3. Things are now moving faster and in the right direction. After my last update, I sat down with the lawyer that my friend recommended. She reviewed everything and told me bluntly that even though there isn't solid proof yet, there's more than enough here to start defending myself, especially if my sister tries something legal. And she warned me, based on how things are developing, that it looks like they might try. The first step she took was to help me draft 2 formal letters. One was addressed to the rehab center where my grandma is recovering. In it, it was stated that there's no court order, no criminal charges, and no legal reason to treat me as a threat or limit visits. I haven't received a response yet, but I was told it's already been delivered. The second letter was addressed to my parents. We sent it by certified mail. It was a formal cease and desist letter, basically telling them to stop spreading lies about me, especially the accusation that I assaulted my grandma. The lawyer told me, "We're establishing a legal trail, which is important in case this gets uglier." But what I wasn't expecting was what happened next. The same lawyer that my grandma had contacted to review her will, who she never met with, contacted me. He found my number through my cousin, who apparently contacted him after our conversation. He told me that before the fall, my grandma had requested a review of her will. She had said she wanted to remove my parents and update the language to reflect that I was her primary contact and beneficiary. According to him, she had been clear about it. He said she didn't trust my sister and wanted everything to go to the person who had been there for her. But since she never made it to the appointment, the previous will is still in place. When I heard that, I immediately called my parents. I didn't expect them to handle it well, but I wanted to see how they took the news about the will change. That's why I was recording too. My mom accused me of manipulating grandma into changing everything. My dad called me disgusting. They said I planted myself in Grandma's life just to get her money. I tried to stay calm and told them that I only found out about the will through the lawyer. I also reminded them that my sister didn't even have a relationship with Grandma until recently, which made what I was saying logical. That's when my sister chimed in. I didn't even realize she was on the call until I heard her yelling in the background. Then she said something that surprised everyone, even herself. I told her that if my grandma recovers and she wasn't to blame for pushing her, they could surely repair their relationship, but that if she had any guilt in what happened, she'd probably end up with nothing. She said, "It was just an accident. I didn't plan to push her." Then there was silence. My dad muttered to her that she shouldn't repeat that, and my mom told me I'd better not mention it again if I knew what was good for me. Then they hung up. I have it. Every word of that confession. She didn't explicitly say she pushed Grandma down the stairs, but she admitted that what she did sees it as an accident. That's more than we've had so far. My lawyer says that could be enough to at least start taking action. It strengthens my position, especially combined with the neighbor's statement, the email, and the motive. My grandma is still recovering, and we're trying not to overwhelm her, but her lawyer is now aware of everything. And if she's well enough to talk soon, we could have her full statement too. I'm not out of the woods yet, but there's enough to file a formal police report. And now, her word won't go against mine. It'll go against her own words. Update 4. It's finally over, or at least the part where I had to defend myself from lies, manipulation, and gaslighting. Now the story has changed. After that last call where my sister made the mistake of admitting that she pushed Grandma, things started to fall apart quickly. Just 3 days later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. My grandma was finally lucid enough to have a full conversation. A nurse at the rehab center contacted me privately and told me that my grandma had specifically asked to see me. I went that time with the lawyer's letter already delivered and acknowledged. There was no more blocked access. The day she fell, my sister had shown up uninvited. She was confused and nervous, but she let her in. My sister apparently tried to convince her that she wasn't to blame for the affair, as she had no one, and how Grandma owed her a second chance. My grandma told her that she was right, and that she wasn't to blame for what my mother did. But their conversation stopped when I arrived. Then, when they went upstairs, they talked again, and my sister mentioned the will. My grandma told her that she didn't know her well enough yet to talk about those things. That's when my sister got aggressive. My sister pushed her hard right at the top of the stairs. My grandma said that the next thing she remembers is waking up in a hospital bed full of tubes and casts on her arms. I had my grandma repeat all of this in front of her lawyer 2 days later, just so it would be formally documented. I didn't want this to become a he said, she said situation again. My lawyer took all that and filed a formal police report. It was sent directly to a detective, assigned to the Elder Abuse Unit. At first, I didn't have high hopes. I still expected someone to ignore it like before, but this time, things moved. A week later, my sister was arrested. I got the call while I was helping my grandma organize her recipe list. The charges were elder abuse, assault on a senior citizen, and lying to the paramedics, since she had said that my grandma had coordination problems, and that's what caused her to fall. She's being held awaiting a bail hearing, but the prosecutor's office is reviewing everything. According to what I heard through my cousin, who is still somehow close enough to get information, my sister's public defender is trying to argue that the fall was an accident and that she was emotionally unstable. Here's where it gets even more twisted. After the arrest, my parents tried to change course. My dad called me the next day, pretending everything was normal, asking how Grandma was, trying to act like they hadn't defended their daughter from attempted murder. It was weird. I told him I wasn't going to talk to them anymore. My mom sent a message saying she was scared, that she didn't know what to believe, that she didn't want to push me away, that Grandma was confused and I shouldn't take what she said at face value. Great, evidence of complicity. I didn't respond. I blocked them both after making copies of the evidence. As for the will, my grandma met with her lawyer last week. She updated everything. My sister won't receive anything from the will, nor will my mother. That part of the inheritance is in my name, along with other powers, like medical decisions and things like that. My name is now listed on all relevant documents. I have power of attorney and full control over her health care. We're working on transferring the deed to her house to a trust as well, so that even if something happens to Grandma in the future, no one can contest it. It's secured. She's recovering steadily, still in pain, still tired, but her speech is improving, and she's more present every day. Now, she knows everything. She cried when I told her that my parents had lied and tried to keep me from seeing her, but she also told me she's proud of me for not giving up, for fighting to protect her when no one else did. The last time I visited her, she said she finally feels safe again. That's all I wanted from the beginning. As for what's next, my lawyer is preparing a restraining order against my sister on behalf of my grandma. She's also working on civil lawsuits, one against my parents for defamation and cover-up, but also against my sister and possibly against the rehab center for denying me access and allowing her attacker in. We'll also expand the complaint to the police to provide evidence against my parents. Update 5. It's been almost 9 months since my sister was arrested, and now things are where they should be. My sister was officially charged with elder abuse, obstruction of justice, and assault on a senior citizen, plus attempted murder. Her public defender tried to reduce the charges to a misdemeanor, citing her mental state. But with my grandma's testimony, the audio confession, and multiple witness statements, including the neighbor and medical staff who noticed inconsistencies in the original report, the prosecutor's office didn't budge. In court, she barely spoke, just stared at the table while her lawyer did everything. When my grandma entered the courtroom in her wheelchair to testify, my sister didn't even look up. She finally accepted a guilty plea. She's serving 8 years in county jail with 5 years of probation after. As part of the conditions of her probation, she can't have any contact with Grandma or me. The restraining orders were approved and made permanent. She's also been ordered to complete a court-supervised anger management program and a psychiatric evaluation. The judge was very clear. Any violation of the terms will result in the original maximum sentence for attempted murder, which is 30 years. When the sentence was read, my sister was crying, and my grandma and I felt a huge sense of relief. As for my parents, since they weren't involved in the attempted murder, they only received some fines and probation for 6 months. My parents were quiet for a while. No calls, no emails, just silence. Then, out of the blue, I received a physical letter from my mother. She tried to frame it as an olive branch. She said she didn't know how serious things had gotten. She claimed she never wanted anyone to get hurt, that she trusted the wrong daughter and didn't realize how manipulative my sister was. She said that maybe she and my dad didn't handle things the right way. It was carefully written so that it wouldn't be another confession of guilt. I didn't respond. I gave the letter to my lawyer in case it ever came up in any future claims. We're currently completely no contact. I haven't heard a word since then, and I hope it stays that way. My grandma is better than I ever thought possible. Her recovery has been slow, but it's going in the direction we want. She can now walk short distances with a walker, and her speech has improved dramatically. She's already reading, knitting, and even cooking a little with help. She has care at home during the week, but she insists on maintaining as much independence as possible. Pure stubbornness. We've become closer after all this. I'm at her house almost every other day now. Sometimes we just sit in silence and enjoy being together. Other times we talk about everything. Nothing is held back anymore, and neither am I. There's a new honesty between us that didn't exist before, and that means everything to me. The house and the will are all finalized. The house is now in a trust. My name is listed as the trustee, and all the power of attorney, medical, and financial documents are officially filed and recognized by the state. No one can interfere or contest it. My sister's name doesn't appear on any document, nor does my parents'. The lawyer made it foolproof. What hasn't ended yet are the civil lawsuits, which always move slower than criminal ones, I guess. Not that I'm complaining. Putting my sister behind bars was a priority. I guess that'll be my final update when they're all over. Update 6. Here we are a few months later, ready to tell you the end of my story, or at least that I hope. The civil lawsuit against the rehab center was the most profitable of all. That's the good thing about suing a company. We have obtained almost $100,000 for not allowing me to see my grandmother, since they had accepted extra money to allow them not to let me see her. There was no order against me, so it was wrong, very wrong, that they prevented me. My parents also received a penalty of a little more than $16,000 for defamation and for paying the center not to let me see my grandmother. Meanwhile, my sister has also had to pay approximately $26,000 just for the fact of lying and causing me emotional damage for everything she did. That money has come out of the few assets that remained to her outside. It feels bad to take everything from someone who has nothing, but you remember that she is my sister and what she did, and you feel very happy. I think my family has had more than enough not to bother us anymore, so I'm sure it will be the last thing I have to write about them. My grandmother is much better, and her recovery is estimated at 80%. A few more months and she will be jumping on one foot and going out on her morning walks as always. I just thank you all and say goodbye.